Today we're going over basic CAD functionality. We're going to create a couple of 2D drawings and a couple of 3D models, and we'll actually save these part files because this is our first training session of the year. So we're going to start from square one, make some basic part files, and in our next webinar, we will use those part files to program some milling operations and keep building on our knowledge of BobCAD from there. And actually, in the comment section, I will also add the step-by-step what would you call it? The step-by-step instructions on making this. It's not gonna format it well for me, so I'll add the step-by-step instructions after each part file that we make, and that way you'll have the instructions on how to go through it after we've made it. In case you've missed a step or anything like that, I'll add that into the comment section there. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know in the comment section as we move forward here. So we're going to start with a basic 2D drawing. It's going to be on making a circular shape, and we're going to make some cutouts with it, put some holes, and make a pocket in the center of it as well. So up at the top, you'll see the Create 2D tab where my cursor is, and we'll go to the arc function, the third option over, and I'm just going to click on the main icon. You can see some customers I see will click on it, they'll click on the drop down below it, which are all of the arc functions that we have in the software program. To make things easy for us, in this webinar, we're just doing the basic arc center function, which is the main one if you click on the arc icon at the top of the icon there. Then I'll type in my diameter over here in the left-hand side. This window is called the data entry window. So I can enter any data in this window and be able to type in exactly what I want for my sketch. So I'm going to type in 10 inches for my diameter. That's going to be the overall diameter of the part. And then we are going to leave the center of the circle in the center of our drawing, which is going to be X0, Y0, Z0. And down at the bottom, I'm going to click OK. And now you can see the orange circle and the blue circle in the center of my screen. The orange is a preview for my next circle I would be sketching, and the blue is the drawing I've already created. And I'm going to move my cursor off of the data entry window here, and you'll see my preview of my new circle move around. And if I click anywhere, it's going to sketch a circle at that location. So I don't want to click anywhere in this CAD workspace. I just want to move my cursor over here and type in my information that we're doing for this circle. Don't worry if your circle is your preview in orange is somewhere out here in space. If your center is X0, Y0, and you type in your diameter and you click OK, it will place it right at the center of your CAD workspace here. So I've made a 10-inch circle, and I'm going to hit cancel. And then I'm going to make some cutouts along the sides, some square little cutouts along the sides of the circle every 90 degrees here. I'm going to do that by going to Create 2D. And then from my arc function, I'm going to go 2 over to my rectangle function. And I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to type in length and width. Instead of 2 inches, I'm going to make length and width 1 inch. So length 1, width 1. And I can make things easy for myself by highlighting the length here in blue, and I'm typing in 1, and then I can hit tab on my keyboard to tab to the next data entry window. Type in the number, hit tab, and keep tabbing down the different selections from there. And now I'm actually going to move my cursor over to place the rectangles at exactly where I want them to be in my CAD workspace here. So I'm going to zoom in a little with my scroll wheel, and I'm going to hover over the circle, and I'm going to click on the top of the circle here where this snap point is. I've placed a rectangle there. Zoom out a little bit, and I'm going to move my cursor to this 3 o'clock position, and I'm going to zoom in. The window is going to zoom in exactly where my cursor is. So as long as my cursor is closest to this 3 o'clock position on the circle, I can click on that snap point and then zoom out and do the other 2 squares here on the bottom and at the 9 o'clock position here. And then I will hit cancel because I've placed all 4 of the squares. I'm going to cancel out of the rectangle function. So I've got a 10-inch circle and I've got a 1-inch square every 90 degrees around the circle. Again, let me know if you have any question in the comments section as we move along. Once we're done with this part file, we're going to move on to a second part file that we're making. But before I make the second part file, I'll add all the instructions in the comments section in case you run into any problems with the functionality here. Even better yet, maybe I can start here. We've got part 1. This is the name I'm going to make it. I'm actually going to go to the top in the software program. I'm going to go to the floppy disk icon up at the top, the save icon, and hit save. And I'm going to name it part 1 2026. And I'm going to save it in my downloads. You can save it anywhere on your computer to reference it for our next webinar, which is going to be 2 Wednesdays from now. January 21st, we're going to use these part files and build on our knowledge with these part files that we're making. So first, in part 1, 2026, I made a 10-inch circle, and then I've got too many tabs open. And then I made 1-inch squares around the circle. Next, we're going to subtract. Now you can see, if you guys are familiar with some of the CAD functionality, you can go to Utilities and you can go to Quick Trim. And you can trim away some of these extra lines here so that we can make a cutout like this all the way around the circle. Now I'm going to undo this because I'm not going to use the Quick Trim just yet. We're going to go to a function that can save us some time to cut out all of the, or to remove all of the excess lines and arcs here, so I don't have to click on each one of them. We're going to our Create 2D again, and about halfway down we have this option for 2D Boolean. The first 2D Boolean function is add. So it will, what it would do is it would add the outside of the square to the OD here. I don't want to do that. I want to keep the inside cutouts. So I'm going to change the type of 2D Boolean over here in the data entry window. I'm going to change it from add to subtract. And my first geometry group is going to be the OD. So I'm going to select the circle here. And then I'm going to click in the window under second geometry group. And then I'm going to select all the squares. Now I can try to window select everything, but I'll have a problem with that because I've selected the circle a second time in my second geometry group. So it'll give me some weird geometry if I click OK. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the circle a second time here, and it will remove the selection in my second geometry group. So that's a good topic to go over. If you click on something once, it will select it. If you click on something a second time, it will deselect it. So then we click OK down at the bottom here. And now you can see the cutouts from the square. It removes all the excess of the square on the outside of the OD of my drawing. Right. I'm going to add that into my instructions here. You can see all the different comments in there for each step. It doesn't format it well in the comment section, so I'm going step by step here. Doing 2D Boolean. I'll add my next step here, which are going to be fillets. And so we go to the top, we go to Create 2D. I can cancel out of the 2D Boolean function, or when I go into my next function, it's just going to cancel out of it automatically, go into the next function. So I'm going to create 2D and I'm going to fill it. 2 over from the left from 2D Boolean. You'll see 2D Boolean, next will be chamfer, and next will be fillet. So first, I'm going to start with the radius here of 1/4 inch. And I'm just going to show you what that looks like with these selections here. It creates a fillet here and creates a fillet on the outside, but it doesn't create a fillet in this corner, and it doesn't create a fillet in this corner. The reason for that is because I've only got 1/4 inch to work with here, and I've only got 1/4 inch to work with here, so it's trying not to overlap. So that's a good one to go over to say, hey, I don't have enough room to make 1/4 inch fillets. So I'm going to change it to 1/8 inch. So over here in the data entry window, I'm going to type in my radius as 0.125. And then our first picking method is between two entities. So what that will do is if I click on this arc on the OD and click on this vertical line, it will do each one individually like this. I want to save some time by changing the method. You have single corner click, so you just click, and wherever your cursor is to the nearest corner, it will create that radius. But I'm going to make it even easier on myself and click on chains. And so if I click on, or maybe chain select everything, or just window select it with drag a window around the drawing, it will create a radius on every corner along the chain here. And so I click OK, and we have an 1/8 inch radius on every corner around the OD. All right. One other thing too is I'm in a top view. Sometimes customers, when you're getting started, you might get into a view that you might not like. It's harder to see the 2D drawing here if you're looking at it on an angle. You can revolve the drawing around by clicking and holding the scroll wheel on your mouse. If you don't have a mouse, you just got the trackpad, you can't do this. Definitely recommend a mouse for this. You have to click and hold on the scroll wheel of your mouse and move the mouse around, and then you can see it on an angle here. Now it's going to be hard to draw in, so you can go back to your top view with this top view icon up at the top. This red square icon. Also, if you're zooming in and zooming out and you lose track of your drawing, the icon from the top view, 2 over to your left, you have this magnifying glass with the letter A. You can click on that to fit the drawing back to your screen. All right, so far we've made a 10-inch circle for the OD. We made 1-inch squares along the sides here, every 90 degrees. We made the 2D Boolean subtract, and we made 1/8 inch fillets for every corner on the drawing. Let me know if you guys have any questions in the comment section. I'm going to add the next step there in the comment section. We're going to make a 3-inch circular pocket. This one's going to be pretty easy. We're going to use the arc function again. So we go up to the top, go to create 2D, go to arc, and type in the diameter of 3 inches. And then I'm going to click OK. Because it's already defaulted to X0, Y0. It's right in the center of my part. And then I'm going to cancel out of the function. All right, next we're making some holes around the pocket. And that will be it for our drawing, and then we'll make it a 3D model. All right, so we're going to make some 1/4 inch holes. I'm going to go to the top under Create 2D. I could go into Arc and make a 1/4 inch diameter and type in X and Y of each location of my holes, but I'm going to make it a little easier on myself, and I'm going to go to Hole Pattern. So you can see the Arc function, rectangle, 1, 2, 3 over is our hole pattern. And I'm going to type in the hole diameter, of, well, what it is here, a 1/4 inch, so 0.25. Right above that, I'm going to change the number of holes from 8. I'm going to make it 6 holes. And right above that, we have our diameter of 2 inches. Now that diameter is going to be the diameter of the pattern from the center of the hole at the 9 o'clock position to the center of the hole at the 3 o'clock position. That's 2 inches across. You can see on my screen that hole is 1 inch from the center, and the 9 o'clock position hole, and the 3 o'clock position hole is 1 inch from the center in the positive x direction. And so we have to make it a little bit larger so that it goes on the outside of the pocket. Let's make it 4 inches. That looks good. And then we will do one more thing before we click OK. There's a checkbox in the data entry window. You can see it says break arc. I'm going to check that box, and you'll see the points inside of the center of the holes go away. So what that's doing is, we have different entity types of our drawing. We've probably got 3, 6, 9, 12 lines, and probably like, I don't know, maybe like 20 arcs with all the corners and the OD. If I have the break arcs turned off, this entity type would be considered a pattern. So if I try to drill any holes or make any adjustments, it will make adjustments to the pattern itself. But if I want to make adjustments to each hole individually later on, I have to check this box, break arcs, and now we have 6 different arcs that are separate from each other in the drawing file. We can go over some of those concepts of patterns, break arcs, break geometry, things like that later on. But for right now, we're going to check the box, break arc, and we're going to click OK. All right. So we've got our 2D drawing. This is what we're going to be using. Probably in our next webinar, we're going to go through some mill express functionality. We're going to do a pocket on the inside of this with an end mill. We're going to do a drilling operation for these 6 holes. And we're going to use an end mill to do a profile on the outside of the part as well. That'll be in our next webinar on the 21st. But for this one, we're going to make the 3D model of this, and then we're also going to make a second part file for some more milling operations later on in the future webinars. So next, we're going to make a new layer so that we can separate our 2D drawing from our 3D model. So over here on the right-hand side, you should see one of these tabs labeled layers. Mine's down here at the bottom right, and it's the first tab right here. Question from David. Good question. Before we get into making the 3D model, can you ungroup arcs at a later time? Yes. So if I maybe made the whole pattern and I didn't check that box, and I need to, you can see if I go into my select mode and I select it, it's selecting the whole pattern. I can't modify a single hole individually. If I've done that and I want to ungroup it at a later time, that's going to be found under Utilities. And you can see this red icon labeled Explode over here on the right-hand side. You would click on the pattern and click OK. That's the same type of function as the break arc checkbox. All right, and then next, let's say we do want to modify one of the holes now individually. I can go to my select mode right here, this black cursor icon right here, and I can click on it, and I can double click on a circle on this hole, and I can change the diameter of it, and I can change the arc center to a different location, and then click OK to move it. But I'm not going to move it. I'm just showing you the entity modify option that we have in our newer versions. I'm in version 38. I think the entity modify started in 36. So if you're on one of those newer versions and you've got that entity modify option, it can be really useful instead of having to go into our Create 2D, create the whole pattern again or create a hole over again, you can just double click on anything in your drawing and modify it. All right, good question. So now we're going into creating the 3D model. You can see the layers tab down here at the bottom right corner, this first tab right here. You might find it somewhere else at the top right, or you might find it on the left-hand side. You can move the layer manager, the data entry window, all of these windows you can move by clicking where it says layers here. I can click and hold on the top of the window, and I can drag it just like any window in, like Microsoft Edge. You can click and hold a tab and drag it over. You can move this to a second monitor if you want to, and you can dock it to the side of the software program again by dragging it over, and you can see the arrow to the right over here if you want it over to the side like that. Or you can see I've got this measure entity window. I want it under that, so you can see when I hover over it, you've got this middle icon, which will add it as another tab with everything else. Or you can go down to the bottom and have it sort of side by side like that. All right, cool. So we're in the layers window down at the bottom here. I'm going to go to this first icon right here, which is creating a new layer down below my CAD layer, which is what my drawing is on. So I'm going to click on new layer, and it's named layer 1. I can type in here, double click in here and change the name. I'm just going to name it solid. You don't have to name it a certain name. It doesn't need to be named solid to be able to put a solid on it. You can name it whatever you want. But it is going to be active with this green check mark. So you can change what layer is active by clicking in the space there to make it active with the green check mark. You can hide a layer by clicking on the eyeball icon next to that active icon there. So I'm hiding the CAD layer, so now I can't see anything that my drawing is showing because it's on that CAD layer. And so this is useful when I'm making the solid model. I can select something and then hide the rest of the wireframe, so I'm not selecting anything else to extrude boss to make the solid, extrude cut to cut away from the solid. It's easier to hide everything from your wireframe to select exactly what you want to make as the solid there. All right, so I'm looking at it on an angle by clicking and holding my scroll wheel down to look at it at a different view here, because we're going into 3D now. I'm going to go to the top, and I'm going to the Create 3D tab up at the top, right next to Create 2D. I'm going to Extrude Boss. So right below the Create 3D tab, we have our Extrude Boss function. And I'm going to just chain select the OD. So I'm just going to click on this arc, and it should chain select everything for you. If not, you should see this picking manager. I'm sort of in the way of it here. All right, so up at the top right, you can see this picking manager. Sometimes it's a pop-up window over here. You can click and hold and drag it over to your side if you want it like this. And the auto connection is normally turned on. You'll want that checked so that when you click on one edge like that, it'll auto connect everything that it's connected to. All right. Now you can see in the data entry window, I have the selected geometry as the OD. And down below that in the positive direction, it starts with 1 inch. I'm going to highlight that number, and I'm going to type in 0. I'm going to hit tab, and you can see that it adds 1 inch to the other direction automatically. BobCAD thinks, well, if you don't want it in the positive direction, we're going to assume you want it in the other direction. One or the other, right? All right, so we're going to leave it as 1 inch. And I'm just going to show you down below the distance, we also have a draft angle. So I'm going to type in 5. And what this is doing is it's making 5-degree tapered walls down into as it goes down. But we're not doing a draft angle. We want straight walls along the sides of the part. So it's going to be positive direction, 0 for distance, 0 for draft angle. Other direction, 1 inch for the distance, 0 for the draft angle. And I'm going to click OK. So there's the main solid of our part file. And then we're going to have through holes for the 6 holes. And we're going to do a 1/2 inch pocket. I think we're going to do that next. I'm actually a little bit behind on the instructions here. So again, I made a new layer. And then I did my extrude boss for the main solid. And then we're going to do an extrude cut with the pocket. And we're going to leave it on the same layer active, the solid layer here. David, good question. When would you use extrude boss versus extrude curve? You're a step ahead of me on this one. So we were going to do that in the second part file, but we'll take a look at it here also. If I were to add the center hole, let's say there's like I don't know, there's a boss in the center instead of a pocket. I would go into extrude boss. I would select the center hole right here, and I'm going to go up 1 inch just to take a look at it. Now the extrude boss automatically creates this as one solid together. In the extrude curve, it would leave these 2 solids separate. So if I want to make an assembly, let's say this is, part of my fixture or part of the vise that I'm holding it with, I can keep that as a solid and then I can move it over still, instead of extrude boss where it adds everything together automatically. Those are the 2 differences between extrude boss and extrude curve. All right. So we're going to, instead of the extrude boss, we're going to subtract with the extrude cut. So I'm going to go to extrude cut. I'm going to start with the extrude cut with the pocket. So I'm going to click on, you can see it's pretty hard to select the wireframe for the pocket here because it's trying to pick up the surface. And if I click on the surface, that's not what I want. So again, what I do is I just hide the layer that the solid is on. I keep it active, but I turn off the layer here. And then I can easily click on that wireframe for the pocket, and I'm going down 0.5 inches in the other direction. I can click OK. I don't need the solid layer turned on. I don't even need the solid layer active. If I click OK, you'll see that it just cuts away from the solid anyway, and it keeps it on that solid layer because my initial extrude boss was created on that solid layer. So I've had customers in the past ask me, well, I did my extrude cut here. I'm going to do the extrude cut with the holes. I'm going to do an extrude boss somewhere else, but the CAD layer is active. Why didn't it switch to the CAD layer? It doesn't switch. It just, the solid stays on whatever layer that it was initially active with. So again, I did the positive direction 1 inch, draft angle 0, other direction 0.5 inches, and draft angle 0. Now you'll notice I went down a 1/2 inch, and in the positive direction I went up 1 inch. That's okay. You can leave it as a positive number. You don't have to zero this out. I actually recommend you don't zero it out because sometimes when you get into, you type in 0 here and you're trying to extrude cut right on the surface of your solid, it can cause issues in the future with 3D modeling. Has sort of like an anomaly or something like that where it tries to extrude cut right on the surface. BobCAD doesn't like that. So we leave it as a positive number, but you do want to be aware if you have a solid model somewhere else out here in space and you're too far out cutting it, you can cut into your other solids that may be hidden on a different layer or something like that. Just want to warn you guys in the future if you decide to create assemblies and things like that in your part file. All right, so we've got a 1/2 inch pocket. Let me know if you guys have any questions so far. I'm gonna add the last step in our instructions here, which will be extrude cut for the holes. So we're still in our extrude cut function. If you backed out of it, you can always click on it again to go back into the extrude cut function. And then I'm going to hide the solid layer, and I'm going to click on each of the 6 holes here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now, if I look at it on an angle, I can see that it's going down a 1/2 inch. I want through holes, so I have to type in at least 1 inch here. Again, I like typing in, like 1.1 or something a little bit more than 1 inch, because when we get into more complicated part files and we do an extrude boss or an extrude cut right on the surface, we could get issues with the 3D modeling portion of it. So I like cutting through the surface there and then clicking OK. So we've got 1 inch thickness for the main solid, 1/2 inch pocket in the center, and 1 inch through holes for those 6 holes. And I'm going to hit save on my part file. I usually save frequently, so I should have saved before this maybe a couple more times in between making the 3D model, just in case you get any kind of freezing on you or crashing, or your computer shuts off, forget to plug in the laptop, all those kinds of things. You want to make sure that you save off in there. All right, Jim has a question. The operation, can you just use a back function, or do you always have to change the distance? Back function. Can you explain a little bit more what you mean by back function? Because I was going to mention these functions here. Well, I've got 2 extrude cuts for some reason. Okay. You can see I have 2 extrude cuts, 1 extrude cut function for the pocket and 1 extrude cut function for the holes. I have to do those in 2 separate functions because I have 2 separate depths. I have to set my 1/2 inch depth for the pocket, and then I have to set my 1 inch depth for the holes. There's no option to set variable depths for each 2D shape. You've got to do 2 different extrude cuts. And if you want to modify the extrude cut functions or any other 3D modeling function, you can go over to the left-hand side here. You can go to your CAD tree, and you can right-click on any of these functions and edit them at any time. If you want to change the distance, maybe if you don't want through holes, you want 1/2 inch holes, you can change the distance here. And if you want to change the size of the holes, you can change the 2D shape of the holes, and then you can reselect your geometry to cut with different size holes. All right. But yeah, hopefully that answered your question, Jim. If you have any other questions with the, you said the back function, or do you have to change the distance? Oh, yeah, maybe the back function you're referring to would be undo. So if I decide I didn't want to do a function, up at the top next to the save functions here, you have your undo to undo the holes, undo the pocket, undo the extrude boss, and then your redo function to redo if you want to go back to what you've done. Cool. But yeah, if you want to modify it, you can always go to your CAD tree and modify the functions as well. All right, good question. So we're going to save our progress, and that is it for part 1, 2026. We're going to make another part file and label it part 2, 2026. So again, with this one, we're doing in our next webinar, January 21st at 1:00 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to do the pocketing in the center here. We're going to drill the holes, and we're going to do a profile on the outside with an end mill as well. Maybe do a facing operation on top of the stock first, and then do the rest of it. All right, so we'll go to the top. You can see there's the save icons, there's the open icon, and over to the left you have new to create a new document. So I'll click on new. We're in a new document, and we're in the original layer, this CAD layer here. And we're going to start with creating more of a curved shape so that we can do 3-axis milling. In this one, we're going to do the Mill Express functionality, which is 2-axis milling, where the end mill is going to come down into the pocket in Z, and then it's going to move around in X and Y, and it'll pocket everything out, and then it'll come back up in Z. So it's only moving 2 axes at the same time. That's what our Mill 2-axis will do in the Mill Express package. And then we'll make a part file here with some curved geometry to be able to use a ball end mill to move X, Y, and Z simultaneously to follow along any curved shape. All right, so let's make it here. So new file, we're going to go to, first things first, I'm just going to save the part file even before I start my drawing. I'm going to go to the top and go to save, and I'm going to name it part 2. 2026. All right. And then I'm going to add the steps that I'm doing here. So part 2, 2026. And we're going to get more into the sketching functions, sketching lines and arcs and things like that, to manipulate my drawing a little bit more than some of the basic shapes that we went through in part 1. So in part 2, we're going to go to the top and we're going to go to line. At the top, we're going to go to the Create 2D tab and then go to line. And we're just in our basic line, enter, sketch function. Now, before we get into any of the sketching, I'll just show you what this function is all about. I can easily just zoom in and click anywhere on the screen, and that's my start point for the line. And I can go over and click a second time, and that's the end point for my line. Also in the line function, you can also type in your start point and type in your end point. So that makes things easy. You can just type in exactly the dimensions that you need. And that's what we're going to do, actually. So you can see in the comment section, I'm starting from x0, y -2. So here we can see start point. I'm going to type in x0. And I'm going to tab over to the y selection, and it's going to be y -2. You can see the update of my start point for the line that I have. You can see highlighted right now in my data entry window, we have Z0. I'm always going to leave it as Z0 because we're sketching on a flat plane at Z0. I'm going to hit tab, and you can see endpoint. We have 2 different options. We've got absolute and we've got incremental. So we're just going to focus on absolute right now. Absolute is going to be x0 as well. No, sorry. No, it's not going to be x0. Sorry. It's not going to be x0 for absolute. It's going to be x8, y0. Nope. I'm confusing myself now. So start point is x0, y -2. End point in absolute is going to be x8, y -2. And we're going to click OK. Place that down. And I'm going to explain a little bit more of what these numbers are. So start point x0, y -2 is right where my cursor is here. And then the end point in absolute coordinates, x8, y -2 is 8 inches over from my origin location here, and y -2 down from the origin location. And you'll see how that relates to the incremental coordinates. Incrementally is x8, y0. And the reason for that is because from my start point, where my cursor is, it's moving 8 inches incrementally from that position, and it's moving 0 inches in Y incrementally. So absolute has to do with the reference point as your origin location where my cursor is. Incremental has to do with the position it references the start point as its initial position. That's what your absolute and incremental coordinates in CAD are. It also relates to the milling. You have absolute and incremental coordinates in your G code as well. But we'll get into that in another webinar. So that's our first line there. And then I'm going to make a line going up from my start point being where my cursor is right here, where we left off. So my start point is going to be what my end point was. So I'm going to type in as my start point x8, y minus 2. So you'll see right now we've got start point x8, y minus 2, end point absolute x8, y minus 2. So they're both in the same position. So you're not going to see any kind of preview because there's no distance with a line yet. And since I'm going to go up, I'm going to go up 1 inch. So I'm going to type in start point x8, y minus 2. And in absolute, I'm going to leave it as x8. And for y, I'm going to change y minus 2 to y minus 1. And you should see an orange line going up from there 1 inch. And then I'm going to click OK. A little bit more about absolute versus incremental. You'll see that in absolute, we have x8, y minus 1. So from this reference position right here, we're going over 8 inches, and we're going down 1 inch, y minus 1. In incremental, we're at x0, y1. And that is because we're referencing this as the sort of origin position, the starting position that we're sketching. And we're moving 0 inches left or right in x, and we're moving 1 inch up in y. So now you guys can get a little bit more of an understanding of the absolute versus incremental there. You know what? To make this easier for our next one, we'll just sketch an incremental. Because I just need to make a line. Sorry, I'm behind on my steps for my instructions here. So we made an 8-inch line in the positive x direction. We made a 1-inch line. We made a 1-inch line in the positive y direction. And now we're going to make another 1-inch line in the positive x direction. So all I have to do from where I am, okay, let's set our start point first. And so we're starting where we left off from the end point of our line. So start point is going to be x8. So we'll leave that as x8. And we're going to change y as y minus 1. So now you'll see no preview because we don't have any distance for our line. We have start point as x8, y minus 1. We have end point x8, y minus 1. And you can see incrementally, we're moving 0 in x and 0 in y. So now all I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to the bottom x value in incremental, and I'm going to incrementally move over 1 inch in y. And so you'll see a line going horizontally in the positive x direction, in the right direction, 1 inch. You can see that orange preview line there. I think that's it. And then you'll click OK. and then you'll cancel out of the function. So let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to go to the top, and I'm going to go to Evaluate, and I'm going to go to Measure 1, and click on the first line that we made. And it'll tell me all of the data here about that line. My start point is at x0, y minus 2, right here. The end point is x8, y minus 2, which is here. And the total length is 8 inches. And it's on my CAD layer. Then I'll click on the vertical line in my Measure 1 function. It'll tell me the start point is x8, y minus 2 down here. It says the end point is x8, y minus 1 up here. Total length of 1 inch. And then I'll measure this one, which is start point x8, y minus 1. And the end point is x9, y minus 1. 1 inch for the length. So that's some of the basics of creating 2D lines. You can either type it in, or if you're good with sketching it, you can go to your line function, click on a start point, click on an end point, and then you can modify the numbers in here after the fact. You can see this line is a darker blue color than my sketching here, because it's still in this modify feature. So I can type in x5 instead, and you can see it shorten it up. So I can type in numbers and modify the line after the fact, and then click OK to finalize it, so that is the same kind of line as all the others that I've sketched. But I'll undo that. One other thing too, when you are typing in numbers here, when you're typing in any numbers in BobCAD, you can do basic calculator functions. So if I have x5 right here, let's say I want to change it to x2. So I'm going to go in the negative direction over here to x2. I can just type in x5 minus 3 and then hit tab, and it will update for me. So you can type in plus, you can type in the dash symbol for minus, you can type in the backslash for divide, and you can type in the asterisk to multiply. So those are some great functions. You don't have to have your calculator with you to calculate everything. BobCAD will calculate everything for you. All right, so we'll cancel out of that line function. And we've got the profile here of sort of a bottle shape. So this will be the bottleneck, and this will be the body of the bottle, and we'll make the mold of it. But before we do that, we want to make some arcs here so that we've got some curves for the bottle shape here. So I'm going to go to Create 2D, and I'm going to go to Fillet. And for the radius, I'm going to type in a 1/2 inch for the radius. So I'll type in radius 0.5. And for this one, I'm going to do single corner click. And I'm going to click on this corner first. And then I'm going to click on the top corner here next. Oops. So it's showing us that it's doing this loop because it can't do a fillet, a 0.5 radius fillet with the length that I have for this line. Technically, I do. Technically, I have the space for it, right? It's just that right when it gets there, this line is exactly a 1/2 inch. So it thinks I don't have enough for it. Here's a nice trick for that. If you run into that issue, we're going to go to Create 2D. We're going to go to Point. And I'm going to sort of cheat the system by making a point right where the end of that arc is, right there. So you can see this little point right here at the end of the arc, and that's what I'm going to click on for my fillet. So I'm going to Create 2D, I'm going to Fillet between two entities, and I'm going to click on the point first, and then I'm going to click on this horizontal line. And you can see it doesn't trim away this vertical line because I didn't select it to trim away. So when I'm done canceling out of the fillet function, I'm going to my select mode, I'm going to click on the line, and I'm just going to click on the point 2, and I'll hit delete on my keyboard to delete those away. So now we've got this smooth transition with this arc into this arc here. BobCAD just didn't like this transition here. It thought that there wasn't enough length for the radius there. All right, let me know if you guys have any questions with that. I wasn't really going to go over those topics today, but it's great to be able to go through everything, and if there's any sort of issues like that, we can cover those sort of frequently asked questions there. So let me know if you have run into anything with this drawing. Next, we're going to make the 3D model of the bottle shape using the revolve to make the revolved surface of this, and then make the mold of it. So let me know if you guys have any questions first. All right. Cool. So next step here, we're going to make a new layer. So right above me right here, we're going to click on this icon right here to make a new layer. That's the first icon in the layers window. The next one over is to make a new group. So a new group would be a group of layers. So if you get into more of your 2D functionality, 3D modeling, you have a whole bunch of different parts in an assembly. You can have some parts in, like the group for your vise, and then the group for your part, and things like that. All right. So I'm going to name this one bottle. And here we go. We'll save our progress. So up at the top, I'm going to click on the save icon. And then we will make the shape of the bottle. By going to the top, we'll go to Create 3D, and we'll go to Revolve. So you'll see Extrude Boss and Extrude Cut that we've gone through. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more over. The smaller icon next to Planar, you'll see Revolve up at the top. You'll click on Revolve, and I'm just going to window select the geometry here. And up at the top right, in my Picking Manager, you're going to select this icon End Chain to finalize that selection for your surface. You can see it's just making half of the surface. I want to make the whole bottle shape. So I'm going to change the rotation angle here in the data entry window. I'm going to change it from 180. I'm going to type in 360 to make a full revolution. And then I'll click OK. It's going along the x-axis, around the x-axis in red here. So make sure you have that selected as well. Now, if I look around the bottle shape, I'm looking through it and I can see through it. So it's not a full solid yet. I want to cap the top and the bottom with a surface. So to do that, I'm going to go to my planar surface. Let's add the steps here in the comment section. I did my revolve surface, and now I'm going to do my planar surfaces. All right. So I'm going to planar surface. That is, planar is right next to revolve, one over to the left. And I'm going to click on the main icon there, and it brings me to my planar surface function. And I'm just going to click on the bottom edge of the bottle. You can see the preview of the surface that it creates. And I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to revolve over here and click on the top of the bottle and click OK. There we go. Now, when I go to my select mode, I can see that this is basically one surface, and then this is one surface individually. So they're still individual surfaces. I need to solidify the solid model. They're still just individual surfaces right now. So to do that, I go to Create 3D, and all the way over to the right-hand side, you can see this larger icon, Stitch Surfaces to Solid. I'm going to click at the top of the icon, the main icon here, to Stitch Surfaces to Solid. And I'm just going to window select everything. It'll select the 3 surfaces here that are individual, and I click OK. And now it is stitched together as a solid. So I can go to the top, I can go to my Evaluate tab, which is 2 over from my Create 3D model, my Create 3D tab. I go to Evaluate, and I go to Measure 1 again. And in my Measure 1 data entry window, I can check this box, Pick Solid. And when I click on the solid, it will tell me the area and the volume of the solid. It didn't have it there if I didn't stitch everything together and solidify it. Now it is a full solid and I can get the volume of it. To double check your work, I have a volume of the bottle as 104.0479 cubic inches. Sounds pretty large for a bottle. Okay. What do we have next? We have, we are going to make the mold. So here's our main solid, but we want to machine the mold of this. So we'll go and make a new layer. Let's see. David, in Revolve, could you use with caps to get the 2 planar surfaces? No, it doesn't. Well, maybe you could. Hold on. Create 3D, Revolve. With caps. Yes, you can check the box with caps, but you would also need to make sure that you're creating the line. You would make a line from your origin location here down, connecting where we started, and you would make a line from where we ended here up to the x-axis. So you could revolve these surfaces as well with caps, but I decided to do it in planar surfaces to go through some other surfacing functions. But yeah, that is a good point. You can revolve the surfaces as well. All right, next we're going to, so we did stitch surfaces to solid, and now we're going to make a new layer, and in that layer we're going to make a rectangle for our stock. All right, so we're going to go to the layers page right here, add a new layer, and let's name it stock. Or you can name it mold or whatever you want to name it. And we'll save our part file. And the overall width is going to be 9 inches, I believe. To double check my overall width or the overall length of my bottle, I can right click anywhere here in the CAD workspace, and I can go to Entity Summary about halfway down, and it will tell me how far over an X in positive and negative X, how far over in Y, and how far up and down my solid model is showing in the CAD workspace here. So 9 inches. And so I'm going to go to Create 2D, and I'm going to make a rectangle for the overall length and width of my stock. And I'm going to type in length and width. Let's go with 12 inches. So 12 inches for the length, 12 inches for the width. And to center it, I need to move it over half of what the length of the bottle is. So I'm moving the base point of my rectangle half of the length of the bottle, which was 9 inches. So it'll be 4.5. So 4.5 in X. And then click OK. So that's length and width of the stock that I'm going to have for my mold for the bottle. Now, as David mentioned, we're going to do the extrude curve to make the solid of my stock separate from the bottle. So I'm going to go to Create 3D. And I'm going to extrude curve. So you'll see extrude boss up at the top, extrude cut, and then the smaller icon up at the top, over to the right, we have extrude curve. So I'll select that one, and I'll select the 4 lines of my rectangle. I'm going to type in 0 for the positive direction again. And let's go down 4 inches. That should be enough for us. 4 inches for the thickness of the stock in the other direction. And 0 for the draft angle. And then you'll click OK. For all these, you're going to make sure with caps is checked here. Just to show you, if we don't have with caps turned on for the extrude boss, extrude cut, extrude curve, it just makes the side surfaces, it doesn't solidify everything there. So you'll want to make sure with caps is turned on. There we go. Okay. We're going to save our progress. And then we're going to do the same function, sort of the same function, as part 1 for the cutouts for the squares here. We did 2D Boolean subtract. In this one, we're going to do 3D Boolean subtract. And that's found under Create 3D. And that one is under Boolean. You'll see extrude boss, extrude cut, extrude curve. We're going to use Boolean right next to it. And instead of add, we're not adding the 2 solids together. We're going to subtract one from the other. So we'll select the type. Boolean type is going to be subtract. The main solid will be the stock. And the solid to subtract from, the solid bodies to subtract, will be the bottle. And if you want to keep the bottle for later on for future purposes, you can check this box, keep subtracted geometry, and then click OK. We'll hide the layer that the bottle is on, and we'll see the cutout or the mold shape under the stock layer. So it keeps the geometry for our bottle if we want to modify it or keep it for whatever purposes, for geometry purposes there. But now we've got the mold shape. And so this is going to be in mill 3-axis in a later webinar that we'll be going over, so that we can rough inside of this area. And then in the 3-axis milling, we'll use like a planar tool path with a ball end mill. And the ball end mill will move X, Y, and Z simultaneously to follow along these curved surfaces. And last but not least, we will translate this. So let's say, for example, I'm going to touch off my milling tools on this corner. So I want this corner to go to the CAD origin location here. And also, if I want to make any modifications or add more to the solid model or add more models, I can have this as a reference point. Might make things a little bit easier for me. So I'm going to save my progress, and then I'm going to turn on all 3 of the layers, the CAD layer, the bottle layer, and the stock layer. And I'm going to translate everything so that this corner is going to move to my CAD origin location. And we're going to go through some of the translate functionality here. So we'll go to Utilities, the next tab over from my Create 3D. And we will go to Translate. Oops, got caps lock on. Translate. So we'll go to Utilities. The first icon over is going to be Translate. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to window select all of my geometry. So that includes my 2D geometry, my bottle, and the mold. Window selects everything for me. I'm going to take a look at the different ways that we can translate this, all of this geometry. So the first option is translate amount. As we mentioned earlier, incrementally. This will translate the geometry incrementally. So let's say I move the geometry over 12 inches in X, and I'm going to move it up 12 inches in Y. And I'm going to click OK. So now we're out here in space. I've moved it incrementally 12 inches over, 12 inches up. Now you can see I need to select the geometry again if I want to translate it again. So I'm going to window select everything again. And you can see it's already trying to translate over 12 inches over and 12 inches up in Y. I want to get this corner right here at X0, Y0. So we can go down to our next option. So instead of translate amount in X and Y, maybe I don't know how far over I need to move it to. I can click on start point. So start point first starts with geometry center. So it's moving from the center of my geometry that I've selected and moving to that endpoint selection, which is X 28 and a half, moving up 24 inches and staying at that -1 Z location there as the center of my part. I'm going to click pick instead of geometry center. So we'll click pick, and we can pick a certain point to translate from. So I'm going to highlight this corner here of my part here in red, and I'm going to click on the corner right here. I'm going to type in my endpoint. Now these are in absolute coordinates. We're getting into absolute versus incremental again. So again, the translate amount here is incremental. My endpoint is in absolute coordinates. So I want that corner to move to X0, Y0 in reference to my origin location. And then I'm going to click OK. If you guys had any questions with moving the part file to get the corner to the X0, Y0 location, let me know. I know we're going over a lot of absolute versus incremental coordinates, how to translate. Just to show you also, if I have a specific geometry that I want to move to out here in space, I'm going to plot a point out here just so that you can see that, this little speck right here, if you can see that. I want to move to that location. I can go to Utilities, go to Translate. I can select my geometry here. I'm going to pick a start point. So pick this corner. And then I can pick an end point, which is highlighted here. And then click on this point to move it to that specific location. It's somewhere out in space, X35.8, Y28.9. I don't need to know those coordinate locations. I can just click on that point and it moves right to that location. So translate, rotate, mirror, those functions are really helpful to be able to manipulate your drawing or manipulate your 3D model to move it to the exact location you need it to be. And I reference this with or relate it to SolidWorks. If any of you are familiar with the SolidWorks CAD software program, these are the same kinds of options. Like when we're translating, the start point and end point would be the same kind of thing in SolidWorks as making something coincident. And you can also rotate about a certain axis. So if there's something you need to hinge around, you can select that as your axis and rotate in BobCAD to be able to rotate it around. Also in SolidWorks, it's called mate references for assembly. So if you need to move something a specific distance in relation to another solid. You can create an assembly with all of those different positions for all of your solids there. So a lot of good stuff. And some of that is pretty technical. We can go over that a later time, or in another webinar. Or if you have any questions in the translate or in the rotate, let me know in the comments section. I'm more than happy to answer them today. We have a whole lot of other CAD functions that we can get to at a later date in a different webinar. But if you have any miscellaneous questions with any of the CAD software, with any of the CAD functionality, let me know in the comments section here, and I'm more than happy to answer them at the end here of our webinar today. But yeah, just to cover again, we did the 2D drawing here and the 3D model of Part 1, 2026. And then we created the 2D drawing of the profile of the bottle, did a revolved surface, planar surfaces to cap the top and bottom of the bottle, and then stitched it together to solidify it. Then we made the stock model here and used create 3D Boolean subtract in 3D to subtract the bottle from our stock. And then we can machine the mold for this in a later webinar. I think the first webinar in milling we're going to cover, January 21st, will be Mill Express. And then in the next webinar after that, February 4th, we'll be covering Mill 3-axis for curved surfaces like this one. So we've covered a lot today with these two part files, some 3D models to create for the Mill Express package for this, for the Mill 3-axis milling for this part file. But yeah, I think we covered a lot today in just the hour that we've covered. So let me know in the comments section if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns of what we've gone over today. I want to thank everybody for viewing this live event. And again, we do these live events every other Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So our first one of the year was January 7th. Next one's going to be January 21st at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Okay, I don't see any other questions for today. So I want to thank everybody for viewing our live event and hope to see you in the next one with your part files that we have saved here that we've done today. And we'll be covering these part files in our next live event, January 21st. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. See ya.